Well, good afternoon, good evening, and in case I don't see you, good night. I am Pastor Rhonda, the founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, and we are here today um, to talk about the importance of removing menthol from the tobacco. And I have with me Dr. Karen Beard, and she will be sharing with us this afternoon just a little bit of information that hopefully will get you thinking. And hopefully, this is some information that you will share with your family and friends so that they can be encouraged and hopefully motivated. But before we get into the conversation, let me tell you just a little bit about Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry. We are a cancer support organization that provides support to all cancer types and caregivers. And we do everything from outreach to getting people screened for certain tests, as well as monthly support group meetings, home and hospital visitation, treatment buddies, telephone buddies, and hospice support. So if you know anyone that is going through the cancer journey and needs some support, some encouragement, or just needs to be involved with a group of individuals who are fighting and supporting you through that journey, Celebrate Life is the place to be. And you will be able to find that information on our website, which is www.celebratelifecm.org. So, with no further ado, hello, Dr. Karen.
Hello, Pastor Rhonda. And first of all, I want to just thank you for allowing me to be here today and talk about this topic that is so important to me and to our community health. And as you said earlier, that topic is really about saving Black lives by banning menthol cigarettes. So, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Not a problem. So, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and get started in the conversation
Okay.
and have at it?
Okay, all right. So first, I'd like to introduce myself to your audience. As you said, my name is Dr. Beard. I am a certified tobacco treatment specialist with Amplify. And just in case you're not familiar with Amplify, we're a company that's based out of San Francisco, but we're a statewide program. And what we do is we help our African American and African immigrant communities get rid of tobacco products in the community. Our goal is to end tobacco use by the year 2030. Now, we know that that is an ambitious goal, but we believe that we are going to reach that goal. And one of the ways that we plan to reach that goal is um, to to instead of purchasing cigarettes, we want to reduce the demand for tobacco products. And once we reduce that demand, what we are going to do, and we're doing now, is we're going to offer free individual and group coaching sessions to help people who smoke overcome the emotional, the physical, and even the spiritual challenges of overcoming living without nicotine. Many people think that it's easy to just stop, but it's not. And I'll get into, why it's not, in a little bit, but more about Amplify. And so the approach we use to working with people who smoke is a little different from what you may have heard or expect. We have more of a holistic approach to helping people. And so what that means is that number one, we don't require that you set a quit date. We include the family members or friends or anyone who you would like to be a part of your journey of giving up, tobacco or nicotine. And you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but we do allow that. And we also, we believe that the approach to giving up nicotine, it shouldn't be a one size fits all. And so we don't have like a standard approach in the sense that everybody is given the same information. Everybody has the same experience. We work with the person that's in front of us, and how we do that is that we do an assessment first, and you are the one who's in control. You tell us, what your goals are in terms of giving up nicotine, and then we develop a plan around that. And I don't think anybody else is doing that. We also do what we call a stepped approach. Again, we work with the person who's in front of us. So one person may not need, like 5 or 6 sessions to give up nicotine. They just may need resources or, a limited support. And so that's fine. And then somebody else might need quite a bit of support. And that's fine. And again, all of this is free. You
So
know,
do you decide, do you figure out the what they need based upon how long they've been smoking, or just, or from your experience, is it based on how long they've been smoking, or just their individual thing of them wanting to try?
well, yes and no. When we do an assessment, we assess what we call their level of dependence. And we have, questions that we ask that will, for instance, how long after you wake up do you smoke your first cigarette? So we do an assessment. Um, However, giving up the cigarette or nicotine might not be the first step that we need to take. That's the ultimate goal. We might need to put in place, and planning is really important. We might need to put in place some other things first. For instance, what are you going to replace that habit of smoking with? You can't leave a void. And so we do all the preliminary and preparation work before we ask you to give up the nicotine. And so, yes, we do an assessment, but is giving up the cigarette, the first goal? Not necessarily.
Okay.
When I was a smoker, all those years ago, back in the 70s, I started with Virginia Slims, and Virginia Slims had come out maybe about 2 years earlier. I had just graduated from college, and I wanted to be cute in the club. And so, you go to the club and you hold it, the cigarette, and Virginia Slims was nice and long, and I'm like Clinton. I didn't inhale. I just, I just held the cigarette there. In fact, one of my girlfriends told me, she said the way to meet guys is to sit there and hold your cigarette, but don't light it. And then a guy would come over and light the
Oh,
cigarettes. And for the most part, that worked. But she didn't tell me some of those guys would be crazy. You wouldn't want to meet them. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So for me, because really I didn't inhale, I was more of a puffer. I didn't know how to smoke. I never, that my body didn't get accustomed to the nicotine. And so it was easy for me to just stop. When they went up to 75 cents, I thought, oh, that's way too much to pay for a pack of
right.
cigarettes back, this back in the 70s. And so it's easy. So everybody has a different tolerance, dependence, and uh, ability to say withstand the withdrawals, the craving. Some people are better at it than others, and so that makes a big difference. So again, that's why you have to work with the person who's in front of you.
Yeah, so because with any habit, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, if you're trying to break it, it's going to
Mhm.
take something different for each and every person.
Right, right. That's why we don't have a one size fits all approach to, giving up anything. And, I'd like to say to our non smokers, some people are really compassionate and have empathy for people who are trying to stop. And then those are us. And I used to be one, I was like, why can't you just, give it up? But I want you, if you should feel like that, like I did, Just remember, you might not have a nicotine habit, but you have something that you need to, for me, it's sugar. I love sweets. And so I have to, when I think about it like that, I find that it's easier to be more compassionate toward those people who are trying to give up nicotine.
Right.
Hmm.
And it's nice to be gracious,
Right.
even for the ones that they really need to stop and they've been doing it a long time. You're trying to figure out how to encourage them.
Hmm.
Whatever you say or do, always be gracious in it.
Hmm.
If you're frustrated with the fact that they're still smoking, then
Hmm.
maybe you just need to not say anything right now.
Right, right. And we do have a program that we will be starting for the loved ones of the person who smoked, because we realize even if the person who smokes is on a journey, but now they're still living with people who don't understand what it takes to give up nicotine. They won't be able to support that person in a positive way. And so, just that relationship being, when you have a smoker, especially in relationship with a non-smoker, that could be stressful, in and of itself. And and that's part of my story, which I was, going to share about how, my husband smoked. And he started smoking menthols when Newports when he was 15 years old. And he continued to smoke. He was smoking when I married him. He continued to smoke. And then he got lung cancer. Now, with the first lung cancer surgery, I was like, okay, and then I think it was about 3 years later, because he continued to smoke after the first surgery,
Mhm.
he had lung cancer again. And so now this time I'm saying, oh, wow, you really need to think about, giving up cigarettes and nicotine. But I will admit, I didn't use those words. I was not that kind. And so in hindsight, I have a little bit of guilt around that because I did all the wrong things to help, him. I cussed, I fussed, I threatened, I tried to shame him. I would say things like, well, don't you want to see the grandkids grow up, those kinds of things. And all that did, Pastor Rhonda, is just drive him underground. And what I mean by that, he just started lying about whether he was smoking. But if you're not a smoker, you can smell smoke.
Right.
Uh, and so I knew he was. And so I had a little bit of anger around that. And so he got lung cancer again.
So
With
that's 3 times.
3 times. And so now, what I said to myself, I would say to him, because he was ex-military and he used to say mind over matter. So I would say to him, well, why can't you use mind over matter, with the cigarettes? And, I knew he was an intelligent man, but I couldn't understand why he wouldn't stop. And so I said, I know you're intelligent because you married me. So I know that's not the problem, but I did not realize the grips that
Mm.
nicotine has on your brain. He had developed a sugar addiction because the tobacco and the wrappers, the paper, is cured in sugar. And so the
Say that
time,
again. The wrapper
yeah, the white paper, the paper,
of
the
this of the cigarette.
and the tobacco is cured in sugar. And so you can, not all people, but he did, some people will develop a sugar addiction. And so in hindsight, when I look back at his behavior, like he would always have chocolate candy. He was eating a lot of candy. And I would say, Larry, why are you eating all that candy? Well, he was trying to stop, but he still had that craving for sugar. And so he was managing that craving with candy. And so after, the third surgery, which he didn't make it, um, and I did a lot of soul searching and reflecting on just why couldn't I help him? Because, I have a counseling background. I have a degree in psychology. but I was not able to help him. And what I learned from that experience is if you don't know tobacco, you cannot help someone stop because you have no idea of how that nicotine affects the neurotransmitters in that person's brain. When a person stops smoking, because the nicotine mimics the neurotransmitters, dopamine, that's the feel good neurotransmitter, the serotonin, the GABA, the toxin, and all of that. Um, the brain will stop producing it because the nicotine is now acting like the neurotransmitter. And our brains are smart. It's going to stop because you're getting it from somewhere else. And so when a person stops introducing nicotine into their body, their brain, it takes about 2 weeks for the body to adjust and now start reproducing those or producing those neurotransmitters again. So you'll hear people who are giving up nicotine complain about insomnia. That's your
Mm,
serotonin. You'll hear them complain about feeling, down, a little bit depressed. That's the dopamine. You're not getting that feel good neurotransmitter. So unless you understand those things, it's easy to really be judgmental and say, "Oh, you should just stop."
right,
But
right.
that's just not how it works.
Wow. Someone
Mm.
made a comment earlier. Geraldine said, Virginia Slim cigarettes in one hand and a drink in the other. I felt so KLASS, cool, KOOL, but
Uh-huh.
could never inhale.
Right, right, right. I'm with Geraldine. I didn't know how to inhale either, and you just sit there and you try to look cool, and yeah.
And then I think it's Antoinette said sugar with a question mark. Thanks for that education. I will share.
Right, right. Now, there are many types of brands of cigarettes, but one thing that the tobacco manufacturers do is they will cure the tobacco in sugar, the wrappers in sugar, because it makes it easier for you to, smoke the product. It's just another way, every chemical, and, I've seen anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 chemicals in a cigarette. They put those in there to, um, to make the smoke burn a certain way or,
Mm,
last, long. And some of the chemicals that are in there are things that you would never ingest in your body, like
wow.
formaldehyde. Who would do that? You
Mm.
know,
And that's
ammonia.
in the menthol or in the cigarette,
That's
period.
just in the cigarette. That's one of the chemicals that's in the cigarette. That's not even considering menthol. That's just the other chemicals that are in the product to either help it burn a certain way, last a certain time, or whatever. And I usually tell people when they're in my classes that, anything you find, everything that's in a cigarette, you probably can find in your garage. You know,
Wow.
in fact, nicotine is a natural pesticide. The nicotine plant produces that has the nicotine in it. I'm sorry, the tobacco plant has the nicotine in it to keep the bugs and things from destroying the plant. And so you can go to Home Depot. If you don't believe me, look at a pesticide, turn it around. It can have nicotine in it. And this sounds like really crazy, but I was watching an ID program, investigative discovery. I love that program. And a lady killed her husband with liquid nicotine. She overdosed him on nicotine. So that's why I don't understand why the FDA is so slow to take the product off the market because cigarettes are the only product. If you use it the way that it's intended to be used, it will kill you. It will kill you. And so they really need to, take the products off the market.
So, can I ask about hookah? Is that how you say it? Hookah.
Hookah.
What is that? And how does that line up with this menthol concept?
Well, hookah does not necessarily contain menthol. The thing with hookah, it's like a pipe, and it delivers the nicotine and the flavors, kind of like through. It's like a water pipe, we call it.
Okay.
And so it's just a different way, whereas a cigarette is combustible. That's what we say, because you light it, it's combustible. You would consider hookah to be a non-combustible source to introduce, the nicotine into your body. And so there's not a lot of research yet around exactly how hookah affects the body, like vaping. We just The research around hookah and even vaping is just being conducted. It doesn't have a long history, so we don't know as much. But this is what I do know. Anytime you introduce heat, or whether it's from combustion or aerosol into your lungs, you are risking inflammation in your lungs. And that is what will, take your life, the inflammation. With cigarettes, the nicotine is what addicts you to the product,
Mm.
but it's all those chemicals in the tar that is produced when you burn a cigarette that causes what we call the tobacco related diseases. So again,
Wow.
it's the nicotine that addicts you, but it's the tar that's produced from the chemicals. And the thing about nicotine, especially when you smoke it and it goes, into your lungs, it can get to your brain in about the longest I've seen is 10 seconds.
Mm.
So once you take that, you inhale it and whatnot, in 10 seconds, it's up to the brain. And so you get that immediate, whatever you're seeking. And that's the other thing about cigarettes, nicotine. If you're feeling down, it can pick you up. If you're stressed, it can, calm you. It's almost like, I hate to say it, but almost like a all around, drug, in the sense that whatever you need, it can meet that need. And so
Wow.
you'll hear people say, well, I smoke because I'm stressed. So it will relieve that. Other people say, I smoke because I'm tired. It will give you a pick you up. Yeah.
And I say this with so many habits that we have. I sometimes wish that we could see inside our body
Mm-hmm.
when so we could see the damage that it is doing and it is causing. Now we already know the addiction from smoking it from the menthol. Is that where the addiction comes from?
No, the addiction comes from the nicotine
Okay.
and the effect that it has on your brain. Now, menthol is just an ingredient that they use. It's the same menthol that you might have in a cough drop, or minty type things. They include the menthol in the cigarettes because the menthol masks the harshness of the tobacco and the feeling in your throat. It makes it feel cool. And so that's why young people, usually when they start smoking, they start with a menthol cigarette because it masks the harshness of the tobacco. And so that's the purpose of the menthol. Unfortunately, and there's some research around this, that with African Americans, uh, I don't know if it's a gene or whatever, but the research shows that with African Americans, it's harder for us to give up menthol. There's some kind of interaction in the body that causes us to not be able to give it up um, as easily. It's not that it can't be done. It's just that it's more difficult. And so, actually, menthol was discovered. It was an accident when it was discovered. back in 1920, there was a guy, I think his name was Lloyd Spud, and accidentally, or maybe it was an accident, but he stored his cigarette in the same place with this menthol that he had. And the cigarette then, when he smoked, he was rolling back then, they were rolling back then, it had this nice, cool feeling to it. So, long story short, he got a patent. And so that was when technically menthol cigarettes were born. And then I think it was around 1950 when the tobacco industry discovered that that it was difficult to um, that menthol made the cigarettes more addicting and it was harder to give it up. And so with that, they started to target the African American communities with these products. And one way that they did that was they would give away free cigarettes. I don't know, Pastor Rhonda, if you remember the old the what was it, the cool jazz festival? Remember the
Yeah,
jazz festivals?
yeah.
I used to go to those, and I never associated the product, the cigarette, cool with tobacco, and I just thought it was like the cool jazz festival, but the um, the tobacco companies were sponsoring events that they knew Blacks enjoyed, give you the free cigarettes. And then that way you got, hooked on them. And so fast forward now, and we see they have, they lower the price. They used to give out coupons. They still, in some way, um, support events that Black people attend. It could be a sporting event, and even some of our champions of our communities. I was surprised to find out that Al Sharpton and Eugene Robinson, who writes for the Washington Post, are spokespeople for the tobacco industry. So one of the tactics that well, let me correct, because I don't want Eugene Robinson to sue me. I know Al Sharpton is a sportsman spokesman, but I believe Eugene Robinson is, based on what I've been told. But that's another tactic that the tobacco industry does. They support our Black newspapers because they know that when something is in the Black publication, that we're more apt to believe it and embrace it. So Essence magazine, back in the day, all those magazines have, the ads in them. And so part of Amplify and African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council's mission is um, to do what we can to stop that, to get the tobacco industry out of our communities. And if anyone is interested in reading more about this, there's an article called Sleeping with the Enemy. I'd be glad to share it with your audience. And it names, I think at one time the NAACP was taking tobacco money. Meharry College, Meharry's medical school, tobacco money. And in a way, I get it. You want to fund your research programs, and I guess people want to make the big dollars and whatnot. But I think it's time for us to stand up and tell the tobacco industry, you can't keep putting profit over people. You devaluing our lives, and if we don't do it, even though the FDA passed that bill, I think made a ruling on I'm sorry, April 29th to ban menthol cigarettes, and I'm happy about that. Amplify and AATCLC, we have fought for decades to see that happen. But now the reality of it is that it probably will take 3 years to get these products off the shelf. And I'm not so sure that they want to move quickly, because you do know that our government gets excise taxes when cigarettes are sold. And so, do they have a vested interest in taking this money out of their pockets? And so, I always say if we as Black people don't demand it or stand up by just, helping our friends, families get off these products, because if you hit them in the pocket, the tobacco industry would not continue to sell these products or manufacture the products if they weren't making a profit. We know that. And so I think that's what we have to do. We have to just say no more. We're not going to buy them, and they'll stop, um, producing them.
So I can remember back in the day when cools were cool. We had the Camel Man on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You had all these different ads, and
Mm-hmm.
the number of organizations and individuals who were spokespeople, or the organizations that receive funds from these from
Mm-hmm.
the tobacco industry. I'm not sure that we understood the impact
We
on
didn't.
our health back in those days.
No.
And I know that the commercials, is it that they still can't show the commercials on TV? I know they're
I,
doing the no tobacco commercial right now.
you,
But it's important for us to, even though the packaging on cigarettes would say warning,
mm-hmm.
these products have been known to cause cancer, or they're not good if you're pregnant, or whatever that message was.
But listen, they make that writing so small. You need to get like a magnifying glass. And people who smoke, when they buy the cigarettes, they don't stop and look at it and read that. And the tobacco industry, knows that. The tobacco industry knows that because they read the same research we read that African Americans prefer to quit without help you know,
Mhm.
um, and the ratio of that is about 3%. So, and the most disgusting thing is that some of the tobacco companies who make the cigarettes that get you addicted also make what we call NRT, nicotine replacement therapy products, your gum, your patches. So either way, they make money, whether you are smoking
So
or
tell
whether
me
you're
about that.
okay, nicotine replacement therapy,
Hmm.
NRT, are your gum, your patches, your spray, your your lozenges that you take to when you're trying to quit smoking. They say put a patch on. Some of the tobacco manufacturers make those products as well, but
Mm.
they do it under a different name. And how many of us would know that? I wouldn't know it if I hadn't been looking for it. And so either way, they're making money. If you're smoking, they're making money, and if you try to quit, they're making money. And they know African Americans will not seek help. You're going to try to do it on your own. And for many of us, and there's no absolutes, but for many of us, it's difficult, and the success rate is very, very low. So when those NRT products came out, at first the tobacco companies were concerned about their profit share, their market share, and their profits. But when they saw that, hey, you know, um, African Americans don't prefer to use NRT. African Americans prefer to quit without assistance. They knew their market was secure, and so, you know, um, that's the most disgusting thing to me that they can make money, either way, off of
Wow.
people's lives.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So what is Amplify doing? Have we crossed that yet?
Yeah, well, in Amplify is a, a program. It's a statewide program, as I began to say. We provide free tobacco cessation classes and individual coaching sessions. So, and even if you're a family member, a loved one, and you have someone that you want to help give up the habit of and the nicotine, we provide free services to you as well. That's what we do on the Amplify side. Now, on the AATCLC, African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, we we on that side we're more about control. So look at it like this: control is about supply, and we attack that from AATCLC. Amplify is more about demand. We want to reduce the demand for these products.
Got it.
And so back in June 17th, AATCLC filed a lawsuit against the I'm sorry, the FDA. We filed a lawsuit against the FDA and the American Medical Association, the National Medical Association, I think it was the Public Law Center for Public Health. They signed on um, that suit with us. And we really believe that that's one of the reasons. I'm not going to say it is the reason, but that's one of the reasons why the FDA just last week, April 29th, stepped up and said, yes, we're going to ban the sale of menthol cigarettes, because now President Obama back in 2009 gave the FDA the charge to take these products off the market, and they just drug their feet. They didn't do anything about it, so we filed that lawsuit. So that's what we're doing about it. Now, some other movements across the country, I wanted to share with your audience that the Center for Black Health and Equity every year sponsors an observance that's called No Menthol Sunday. And it is a faith-based observance. And what we ask is that African Americans who smoke, we ask them not to smoke on that day. And that day for this year is May 16th. It's just similar to, like, sometimes we say, remember the buy black, that day we're not going to buy anything but black. So it's the similar concept. On that day, don't smoke menthol cigarettes. Now, the goal for Amplify and AATCLC is to, as I said, get rid of all tobacco products. This is just one thing that we do. And for the most of the years, it has been national. But I am so proud to say that, guess what? This year, we are international. We have churches around the world, mostly in Africa, that is joining in with us to celebrate and observe this day, to say no cigarettes. And so it's real easy if you want to participate in it. Your church or your faith-based organization is real easy. The Center for Black Health and Equity will send you a toolkit. And in that toolkit, I was so impressed this year. And they usually give out church fans, but I think this year they're giving out masks.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just sign up and you tell them how many masks you want, and they will send it to you. And so you don't have to do any thinking, because in that toolkit, it will give your pastor some suggestions, only suggestions of what the sermon could be about. This year, it always has a theme and based on scripture. And so this year, the scripture is Isaiah 43:18-19. And the theme for No Menthol Sunday this year is a new day. And so every year we have a theme and a scripture. And the whole purpose, again, is to get people who smoke menthol cigarettes, and anybody who smokes, just not to smoke that day, and also to use that day to raise the consciousness, of our communities, that, a lot of people just think they don't even put smoking in the class with other substance abuse drugs. But actually, nicotine is more addicting than cocaine.
Wow.
Many people don't, realize that. And so some people are not as vigilant about saying, oh, you need to stop smoking, because they say, well, you know, you chose to do it. Well, it's not illegal. You know, you can't be arrested for smoking while driving, you know, like you can with, you know, alcohol. Um, you can only drink so much before you pass out, but you can be a chain smoker and you're not going to pass out from cigarettes. So it's a little bit different, but it harms our people just the same, just the same.
Wow. Because
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, the theme, the motto for Celebrate Life Today with Pastor Rhonda, our TV show, is choose life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know that once you have started along a negative direction and you develop a habit, you develop things that you can't shake in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to choose life, but you get to a place and you're like, I need to do something. I want to make a difference in my life. I don't want to continue to smoke. I don't want to continue to inhale the menthol or the
Mm-hmm.
nicotine. I don't want to do these things anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
I just can't stop. And there are some people that, can wake up that in the morning and it's instant for them. It's instant. But the
Mm-hmm.
majority, it's a process, and it can be a long process.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that Amplified is around to help
Mm-hmm.
you along this process is a marvelous tool to have in your pocket.
Right, because as you were speaking, I was thinking, and I definitely want to share this with your audience, is that I blame those of us who consider ourselves to be professionals. Um, you know, 78% of African Americans, the research shows, want to quit, but only 3 to 7% do successfully, which means you remain quit. Um, because technically, every night you quit, most smokers don't wake up to smoke. So I know you can quit, but you just need to remain quit. And I take part blame for that as a professional, because I don't believe that we have approached it in the right way. For example, to your point, Pastor Rhonda, it is a process. It's not an event, but many people think you just stop, you know, like it's an
Yeah.
event. But it's not. It is a process of learning and relearning. You know, you try this, it might not work. And so then you try something else. It's like building skill to be a basketball player or something. What if Michael Jordan had stopped because he missed the basket? You know, it's same thing with a person who smokes. You might have a lapse, but you know, start back on the journey. You know, it's not, you know, the end of the day. And whether someone quits more easily than others can depend on that person's body. You know, you could be a smoker and have diabetes, or you're taking different medications, the foods that you eat, whether your body's in good shape, or, you know, do you walk or whatever. So all those things come into play when you're trying to change, you know, break that habit. And that's another reason why you just can't say, stop smoking. You have to look at that individual person and see what's going on in their life first, and sure of that, you know, how are we going to deal with, because sometimes nicotine will um, cause your medications to act a certain way. It
Mm.
might not be harmful to you. So now when you stop the nicotine, you may not get the same effect with your medication. And so, you know, if you don't understand that, or nothing's in place to help you with that, you know, you might just feel that, oh, I just can't do this, too hard or whatever, not realizing that there is a reason that can be addressed, you know, for that. And
And then
so,
some,
go ahead.
and then sometimes we don't even realize, well, our habits are not only our own.
Mm-hmm.
So if we live with others or we're in close proximity with others, some people smoke so much it's in their clothes. And
Yeah.
and I just wonder, if it's in their clothes and I can smell it, if I have to smell it all day, every day, then that's another thing. And if you're smoking in an environment, like I know that, one of our survivors is struggling. They live in an apartment building. There's supposed to be no smoking,
Mm-hmm.
but the neighbors smoke and it's going through the
The
vents,
vent. Mm-hmm.
and they try to go outside and they smoke outside. And which way does the wind blow? Past her house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if her door or her window is open, it's coming right in. She's a cancer survivor trying to live her life the
Mm-hmm.
best way she possibly can, but is surrounded by people who have habits that
Right.
can't or won't break.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, people don't want to. So we have to consider that as
And you're
well.
right about that. There are some
Um,
people who are what I call committed people who smoke. They're just committed to it. And so, other than usually what I suggest to them is, well, make sure you get your lungs, take the lung test every year to you see, if your lungs have been compromised. Most people don't because they don't want to pay for it. But going back to your client or your patient, we're kind of like in a position where the laws have been passed that in multi-unit housing, which includes public housing as well as condo living, that kind of circumstance, that you shouldn't smoke, in your residence. But we're working really hard to balance non-smokers' rights with, we don't want to criminalize the action of smoking, such that if you are smoking in multi-unit housing, you can be charged with some kind of offense. So we're working on that, trying to think it through, putting things in place so that we can address.
but if
Uh,
it's supposed to be a no smoking facility,
uh
then those people should, it seems like to me, they should not be allowed to stay in that facility.
Well,
If they came in saying they don't smoke, if they did, let's say they
mhm,
did, if they came in and said that they are non-smokers in the household, and they do, and it's supposed to be a non-smoking environment, then it should be an environment that non-smokers should be very comfortable in.
right, right. So, what we've been talking about, or what's being talked about, is how would you address that? And just the other day, I was in a meeting where we talked about, well, the first offense, you would just get like a warning and education around, the issue. And so we're trying to figure out what to put in place. We don't want people locked up because they smoke. Now, maybe the management could have the option to not cancel your lease. But if it's a condo, you can't. I mean, you can't. People have purchased the condo. What do you do? So it's not really easy a fix
Cut
as,
and dry.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's not cut and dry. And the main thing is we don't want to criminalize the act. So what can we do, short of that? Now, I did hear that some places are having designated smoking areas. And I'm thinking, well, if it's outside, well, it's going to blow, to what you just said,
That was
by,
my thought. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so it's not easy, but, we don't want to rush and put something in place and then have people have records, because criminal records, because they were caught smoking. But we are, working on that. And so I hope some, your audience will, if you want to be involved with the No Menthol Sunday activities, if you just said to someone on May 16th, this is No Menthol Sunday, and tell them what's that about. If you If you would like to have the toolkit, it's free. You can just go to centerforblackhealth.org and they will send you one. You get it right away. And so another thing that we're doing in the community, Pastor Rhonda, and when I say we, um, this time it's USC and the California Black Women's Health Project. I'm the community co-PI for a study that we're doing called Regulating Menthol Cigarettes. I don't know if you're aware, but back in last May, May 1st, a ban went into place to prohibit the sale of menthol cigarettes in LA County. I'm sorry, the unincorporated areas of LA County. And so this study is to get the opinions of African Americans who smoke. It doesn't have to be menthol, but who smoke. We want to get their opinion about the ban. And so we are recruiting, we want, at least 80 people who smoke to just tell us what you think about that ban that went into effect in the unincorporated areas. Now you can't purchase cigarettes in menthol flavored cigarettes in those areas. We're also talking with the tobacco retailers to see how it affects their business now that you can't sell these products. And so it's a 2-year study. And the first year we're doing our data collection. And then the second year we're going to take that information and disseminate it, what we found, to the community. But we're also going to develop interventions for our community. And this is what's most important to me.
So how do they find out about that?
They can contact me. In fact, I'm going to, give the information, before we end. But what I wanted to say is most important is that when we don't have African Americans, Black people participating in the studies, the information that we get and then we try to modify for the Black community might not be as effective. So I understand there's a lot of thoughts around, studies and what has happened to Black people when they participated in a study. But we need your voice. This is an opportunity to voice your opinion, to be at the table, so to speak, and say, what you think about this, what should be done about this. And so, I just implore, I just really encourage you to, if you are not a person who smokes, if you know of, as long as that person is 21 years old and up and they're currently smoking, if you would have them get in touch with me. And all it requires, the only thing we do is an interview with them. And at the end of the interview, they will get a $50 gift card. We don't care what your opinions are. I spoke to a minister who said, well, I don't think you should ban cigarettes. And I said, well, I'm glad you were honest and, shared that opinion with me. So we're not concerned about what you say. We just want you to be involved in the process of deciding what's going to happen in these unincorporated areas of LA County.
Awesome.
And so that study is called Regulating Menthol Cigarettes. And so if you'd like to, if you'd like more information about the study, if you'd like to participate, or if you'd like to have someone participate, just reach out to me, Dr. Beard at amplify.love. Or you can call me at 727-512-1880. That's 727-512-1880. And so I'll just end by saying, I hope this has been helpful to your audience, Pastor Rhonda. And I'd just like to ask the audience to say no to tobacco, join us in saying no to tobacco. and stand with us in our efforts to save Black lives by getting rid of these products, in our communities and putting profit over people. And again,
Amen.
I'd just like to thank you for having me,
Amen.
Pastor Rhonda.
This has been a great conversation. And while we spent most of the time focusing on the addiction and of the nicotine and the menthol, let's not forget about the effect that they could put on the body, which can lead to lung cancer. So we want to make sure that, there's a lot of reasons why we should not do some of the things that we do. And for those people in your life, just as Dr. Beard has said, be an encouragement to them,
Mm-hmm.
be a blessing to them.
Mm-hmm.
If they're asking for help, send them to the website for reach out to Dr. Beard and send that information to them so that when the time is right, it shall be, and
Mm-hmm.
that they will have the tools that they need to go forward. Yes, ma'am.
And may I say this, one of the things that I regret is that, when my husband was going through his challenges of giving up nicotine, I wish that I hadn't talked so much. I wish
Mm,
that I had done more listening. I wish that I had asked questions like, what is it about smoking that you like, instead of making statements like, if you don't stop smoking, I'm going to leave you. Don't judge me either for saying that. But, fear was driving me to say all these horrible things because I did not want him or I to have to go through another surgery. So
yeah,
ask questions more than, make statements.
yeah. Very good. I thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. This is very enlightening. And again, we want to encourage you all to share this information with your pastors and any group that you're a part of. And let's not limit it just to the churches, but to share this information for what is it called? No
No,
tobacco.
no menthol Sunday on
No,
May 16th
that's
and
all day long. May 16th is
all day
all
long.
day long.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And regulating menthol cigarettes is the study that we're doing in LA County.
All
So,
right.
mhm.
Very well. So again, thank you, Dr. Beard. Thank you all of you for joining us. And as we always say, until next time, choose life.